What's up guys, SkyKevin here, and today we're going into all the details concerning the changes of the ancient city map. We're going to go over the map itself, my thoughts on the new content added, and some of the changes and other things I'd like to see looking at the challenges you have to face. So, let's get started. The Ancient City map recently released for Season 5 of Last Oasis, and I've been hesitant to get into the details of it for a bit until I took the time to understand what was going on. When it came to the announcement with the release of the map, very little was given to the actual content they were making available, as well as the details on the map and how it plays out. They mentioned there would be a whole new look and feel to the Ancient City, and that many things were changed for the map. They also added a new system called the Relic Hunter, in which you go into this map, get relics, and bring them back to a trader on the PvE tiles, and hand those in for experience points. As you get experience points, you rank up, and at higher ranks can buy schematics of all rarity types using the ancient coins that you get from the city map. Lastly, there was the change to the grappling hook to extend the distance and make them once again much more viable to Spider-Man swing from building to building or tree to tree. So let's talk about the grapple changes first, because it's the simplest thing to address. The grapple is, in my opinion, completely fixed and the most balanced it's ever been. You have the option of long or fast grapples, and you don't regain stamina nearly as quickly as you used to. So in most circumstances, you can't perpetually be swinging around in the air, which, as I mentioned a long time ago with my grappling video, this is the best way that they've been able to balance things to make PvP viable, where you can't just endlessly swing around someone's walker without actually boarding them. If you do hear people still complaining about it, chances are they haven't actually played the game since this update. For my thoughts on the map as a whole, personally I think there's a lot of missed opportunities for content, and they really focused it on kind of a one-trick event going to the middle. I'll explain the details of how to do everything later in a different video, but for now you essentially have the center main area, slight outskirts around the water, and then the far outskirts of the map. Each of these areas has very little in variety or even rewards for that matter, and so it ends up feeling very empty, at least when it comes to the PvE content. This is kind of a problem because half of the maps are spawning as PvE only, so there isn't really any point on being on these maps once you've done the race to the center. I think this is especially the case for people who don't know what to expect when exploring this map. At first glance, it seems like there really isn't anything at all there to collect because you're usually just staring at big rocks, and it's not until you know where things are located that it actually feels like it does have a lot more loot available. I think this only added to the frustration brought on by the new Rupu weapons and towers, which are probably one of the biggest flops that the map had. You have Rupu turrets that shoot fire and gas from very far away with impeccable accuracy and a huge aggro range. They have these wall camps that are one of the main sources of loot when it comes to ancient coins, and so far I haven't found a single effective strategy that works when it comes to dealing with the camps. Indeed, the overall feeling you get when playing the Ancient City map is one where you basically have to run away from everything that you see and try to loot what you can before a giant gas bomb comes out of nowhere and lands directly on top of you. A lot of the problem lies in the fact that the weapons, armor, and health of these turrets doesn't really give it any weakness to a particular walker or player weapon or strategy, at least not one that I've considered so far. I think the issue stems from the armor type of the turrets being medium, which pretty much discounts all bolts from ballista, darts from spinners and stingers, and repeaters, and any scatter shot, not that it's ever really used anymore. This means the only two effective weapons are rockers and lobbers. Rockers make the most sense given that it's basically a cannon, but with the recent aim nerf to them, you can't really stay far away and shoot them down effectively. With lobbers, they work moderately well if you're close enough to them, but since all the turrets are so high off the ground in these towers, they often won't be able to reach even if you're up close. You can grapple around some of them and jump on top to melee the Rupu inside the turrets, which ironically they now have an even more protective model than the old turret mesh in some of the medium camp maps. But unfortunately, if there are any other turrets within range, chances are you'll just get gassed by them. This is even more annoying since these Rupu are completely immune to gas effects, so they more or less perfectly cover each other when they're in range. I will mention though, that the flame turrets on the other hand are nearly the opposite. I'd say 50 to 70% of the time, they'll just kill themselves without you even trying, just due to the line of sight and shooting the bottom of the platform that they rest on. Indeed, when you're doing the walls with 6 of them on top, usually your best strategy is just to hide underneath and let their their fire do all the work for you. And speaking of these ancient city walls, it's quite strange that these structures in particular have no armor rating whatsoever. I think this is a fundamental design flaw in that you'd expect them to be stronger than the turrets that sit on top of them. In this regard, the most effective way to take down these walls is to use spinners and repeaters with darts, as they have the best damage output for unarmored targets. You would think that taking down a wall would require much more of a siege type weapon like lobbers or rockers to take it out. Honestly, it would make so much more sense if you made these turrets have soft or even no armor rating and gave that medium distinction to the wall itself. I think in terms of balancing, this would also give a great opportunity to bring ballista back into the game as a viable option as the sniper type of weaponry. I think if they went with something where lobbers did good damage to hard type armor, ballista did good damage to medium, and spinners did good damage to soft, you would see a much more robust system for each of the weapon and ammo types. I'm not just thinking about the enemies in the ancient city tile here, but also instances in the medium and hard maps as well. You don't have to have the 100% to soft, 10% to medium, and 1% to hard what they have now. Especially when you can do something like a ballista dealing, say, 50% damage to soft, 100% damage to medium, and 10% to hard, darts dealing 100 to soft, 10% to medium, and 0% to hard, and maybe lobbers and rockers dealing 10% to soft, 10% to medium, and 100% to hard. These numbers are just an example, but you can balance them to be whatever you need to for players to choose that kind of weaponry whenever they need to take out their intended enemies. This could also extend onward to the balance with how ammunition deals damage to ships, and maybe that's something that they're intending to look into when it comes to the more comprehensive PvP update. But when it comes to the ancient city map, it feels like they don't have any counter to the dangers and challenges that they've set out for the players. When it comes to the concept of the maps, it's actually pretty good. In some cases, schematics like the curing station are so rare that finding a legendary one takes a ton of luck. At least this way, having the schematic shop gives you a much more reasonable chance of getting those types of schematics that you need to progress. In that same regard, it does a good job of keeping an avenue in the game that you can continue to play even when the next maps and higher tier content comes out. Basically, you'll always have a reason to do the ancient city tiles, even when the highest tier stuff comes, because on the future Lava and Spires maps, they can just be added into the rotation. I think that was their main goal with this, was to add some content to the game that will continue to remain relevant. It would be interesting if in the future, once they have more event tiles, they actually have the ancient cities become rarer than they are now. I could definitely see that they have a lot of these event tiles acting more like short dungeons to elicit players to venture out off of their home tile to acquire some enticing rewards. I think for now though, they have the quality and ancient city tiles running simultaneously, mostly for testing purposes, while they introduce each new one into the game. This is kind of evident in the lack of new content that the ancient city tiles brought to the game. Usually with a new map, they would release the ability to acquire a new walker or some other cool stuff. In this case, they had the opportunity for some rare drops to be added secretly, and I think for this update, they should have added something like a newly rebalanced Hornet Walker, and perhaps the Flotillan or Sturdy Grappler, along with some of the other less noteworthy items. I have had Max Relic Hunter rank for a while now, and I've kept my eye on all the items made available from the shop. From that, I can tell you that there really aren't that many impactful new recipes that became available. It's great that you can get items that are generally unlootable, like a Walker Driver Cage, but for some reason they also included schematics like the padded Lightwood or Carapace armor, and even the split durable water sack, which requires iron ingots or obsidian in order to craft. Now they did add the Spider Walker as a lootable schematic from doing the windmills, and the winged helmet as loot from the Rupus, but nothing too effectual, especially since you can't even fix the helmet at low durability. It'll just crash your game when you're using it in the repair station. I think if they would have sneakily added something like the Hornet Walker into the game, or something of a similar vein, it definitely would have a much more impactful milestone for updates as far as this season goes. Unfortunately, all we really got was the Spider Walker, which is pretty useless when it comes to what it can actually do. So all in all, I really didn't find the new Ancient City map all that transformative for the game. It's got some good balance changes, which is great, but not all that much substance behind some of the design decisions they went with. It's like they made it difficult for the sake of it and really didn't consider the rewards or a typical cycle for how the tile would play out for players, especially when it comes to overcoming the challenges that they've created for them in the first place. As a system and sort of side content, it does its job just fine, especially when you've learned how to tackle the tile itself, and it can quickly become like clockwork. I don't think this was intended as the next big update they were looking for to retain their player base, and rather just another avenue to get schematics that you need without constantly grinding the quality tiles, and giving players the option and a way to succeed outside of the PvP realms. And despite some of my reservations, I'm still hopeful that Elo is moving in the right direction with most of its gameplay and how the mechanics actually play out. The balance changes in this update were actually really good, and I just hope that we won't be waiting for more than a month for the PvP update, which will really turn everything on its head. If the next one can provide players a King of the Hill style mechanic where we actually have incentive for clans, large and small, to fight and retain ownership and clout of the areas that they reside, hopefully then we can see some more competitive groups decide to step back into the fray and actually try the game out in its current state. The fundamentals are all there for players to vie for strength and power when it comes to their walker and their gear. We just now need something to fight over with all of that gear that we can accumulate. If you're a player that quit Season 5 because you found it frustrating, just know that many of the issues that plagued things since the beginning of this season have been fixed or adjusted properly, and I still think that the game is in a great place as far as the actual gameplay goes. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.